Greetings, YouTube. Time for another mental health video. As almost always, I'm still processing my anger issues and what makes me angry and what I do about it. And a few weeks ago, well, more than a month ago, I guess. Yeah, more than a month ago, almost 6 weeks ago, I guess now. My therapist pointed out to me that he said that, well, what gets you angry? Because I've watched this. He's observed. Sorry, cat. He's observed me in session. Um, he said it is usually stupidity and ignorance. And I thought about it for a while, and I realized that stupidity wasn't the right framing. It really wasn't. Because that could imply that someone's mental capacity is what makes me angry. And I'm not angry at somebody because they're neurodivergent. You know, that's not going to make me upset. I'm not. That someone's neurodivergence is just going to be something that I will accept about them and deal with them however they need the world to have them dealt with, how they're dealt with. Okay, I've dealt with lots of neurodivergent people in my day, and I try to be as considerate and as kind and as compassionate as possible, and just accept that that's just a different way of looking at the world. It doesn't make them better or worse. It doesn't make them better people. It doesn't make them worse people. That's just how they are, and this is how I am. And if they can put up with my bullshit, I can very easily put up with the fact that anybody else looks at the world in a slightly different way from me, and that counts for every other aspect of the life. There are things that I don't have to worry about, and this person doesn't need anything special from me. I don't need anything special from them. So being neurodivergent is not an issue. Now, what I realized is that he was right about the ignorance part, but then I realized it was indifference that does it. And when I say ignorance, I'm not talking about genuine ignorance. I'm not talking about you don't know, X, Y, or Z. Like, I know almost nothing about sports, but it also doesn't interest me. And I do not have a job, or nor am I in a position of social responsibility or control of anything dealing with sports. So the fact that I don't know anything about sports affects no one's life whatsoever, including mine. So that is genuine, sincere ignorance. I don't need to know it. I don't have to know it. I'm not responsible for it. Everything's good. No, I'm talking about willful ignorance. Willful ignorance is when you know you don't know something that you should know, and you don't care. That's what we're discussing. Willful ignorance. And indifference, that's kind of self-explanatory. You know something's going on. You know something is happening or not happening, and you don't care. And then I thought about it some more and realized there was a third category, and that was incompetence. Now, if you'll, the bright amongst you will notice there's a very similar connection between those three things: willful ignorance, indifference, and incompetence, because they're all involving decision making. If someone has made a deliberate decision to be ignorant, to not care, or to not do their job properly. Because at any point in their life, in the process of dealing with the world, where the rubber meets the road, they could learn, they could care, or they could become competent. But they make a deliberate choice to not. And that's what makes me angry. And because my doctor, my doctor, well, actually he is a doctor. I say it, I just think of him as my therapist. No, he is a doctor. He has a doctor. He's Dr. Steve. But because of the way he helped me frame this, when I find myself angry, I try to remind myself as quickly as possible that I am angry because something has triggered that bucket of responses. It's kind of nebulous at the moment. And it hasn't helped me stop being angry, but it is helping me diffuse the anger more rapidly. And I'm becoming far more aware of it. So I'm noticing because of the types of things that make me angry, A lot of the time, if I'm alone, like if I'm working completely by myself, there's no one else around me physically, and none of the people I'm responsible for is coming to talk to me. I'm just by myself. I don't get angry until I begin to rub into something that falls into one of those categories. And for example, when my process I'm running doesn't work well, then it does, because that rubs into the indifference and incompetence, because the people in charge of my process didn't do their job right because it's not working. And because it continues to not work in exactly the same way every single 70 seconds and every single day, that's indifference. And I'm being reminded every single second, every 70, 80 seconds, boom, 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 it doesn't work, doesn't work, doesn't work, doesn't work. That's not a healthy way of looking at the world. I know this. But I can't get myself into the frame of mind to be just accepting it. I'm working on getting to that point, not because I should accept it, but because I need to reframe it to keep myself sane. But if I don't encounter something like, say, everything around me works really well, I don't get angry. And so, and I can get my head into a space that is much clearer and much easier to live with. And then when I do get angry, it stands out. And I realize that I'm angry because someone didn't do the job right, or someone doesn't care about something, or because they're being willfully ignorant. And again, I have no control over everybody else. I'm not asking for it. And I have to accept the fact that I don't have any kind of control over everything. And that's not easy for someone who is suffering from mental illness. But I'm trying. And lastly, about this whole thing is accountability. I want there to be accountability. I want the person that is willfully ignorant to be held accountable for their ignorance. I want the person who is indifferent to be held accountable for their indifference. And I want the person who is incompetent held accountable for their incompetence. I want there to be repercussions. I want them to either change, which would be the ideal situation, or be eliminated from being involved in whatever the hell it is that is pissing me off. Whether it's designing a process that doesn't work in front of me at work, or designing a system of governance that is inherently racist and sexist. I want it fixed. And I want the people who are alive and involved in maintaining those systems to be held accountable. And of course, this all stems back to my childhood, where there was no accountability. My father wasn't a psychotic, abusive drunk. My mother was an enabling, passive-aggressive survivor. And there was no accountability. Neither of them was ever held accountable. And even if those people who they are today are not the people they were then, and even if I don't hold them responsible for the things they do now, I still hold them responsible for what they did or didn't do when I was being raised, because that was their goddamn job. They should have known how to do it. They shouldn't have been indifferent to how successful they were at it or not, and they should have gotten the training they needed. They weren't incompetent at it. And that goes for every parent in the world. If you're not good at your job, damn, that's going to make me angry. I've known good parents in my day, and they are far and few between. Yeah, they are. I want people held accountable for what they do in life. And I'm still trying to process the anger that I get when I encounter willful ignorance and indifference and incompetence. And I imagine I will for a long time. And even if I can get to myself to the point where I'm no longer angered by it, where I put it in proper frame of reference and I can, put it in context, doesn't mean I'm going to accept it. None of us should. And we should all hold the people accountable who commit these acts, because they do it deliberately. Not a mistake. It's not whoopsie. They're intentionally being bad parents or crappy politicians or shitty human beings. They're intentionally being racists and misogynists and homophobes. They're doing this deliberately, and I don't think it's asking much for them to be held accountable.